I've never actually been disappointed in an election before. Surprisingly enough, never once in my life. In 2008, I was very invested in Obama, wanted him to win. He won. I was happy about that. Did not pay attention to 2010 at all. 2012, I really didn't care who won. 2014, didn't even know it was happening. No, that's not true. I knew the 2014 election was happening. The 2010 one, I straight up, I don't think knew it was happening. But 2014, I did know, didn't care. 2016, even though I probably would have voted for Hillary Clinton, I actually kind of wanted Donald Trump to win that one, and so I was not disappointed in that turnout. 2018, I was fairly satisfied, I think. 2020, again, fairly satisfied. 2022, fairly satisfied. This is the first election, actually, in my lifetime where I've actually been quite disappointed. But probably not for the reason you think. I think the most disappointing thing about this election is that nobody else understands why this election is so disappointing. I'm the only person who actually knows the real reason why this election is disappointing, the long-term reason why this is disappointing. And that to me shows the failure of our propaganda apparatus. Like, what are we doing? Why hasn't this issue been made important? Because in my mind, for my whole life, this has been the most important issue for me out of all of them. And nobody cares. Nobody cares about what I care about. And it's depressing. And the fact that we failed, not just in Nevada, but also in Missouri with this, the fact that we failed is depressing enough, but the fact that nobody actually cares or is talking about it is way more depressing to me. Because it shows that nothing is ever going to get done. And that's tragic. I don't know what Missouri's whole situation is. I didn't even know that they were voting on ranked choice vote in this election. But I have been following the Nevada thing, of course, too, because I live in Nevada. And here, ranked choice voting was roundly defeated in this election. It passed, actually, in the last one, and this time, for some reason, it was defeated. And I don't know why, but I remember seeing the ads for question 3 in this election cycle, and I remember thinking they are totally wrong-headed. Like, they're not approaching this the way it should be approached. Because there was this, I've always thought it was a dumb idea, packaging ranked choice voting in with all this other bullshit that we don't need. Yeah, maybe some people think it's a good idea, but we actually don't need it. The thing that we need is ranked choice voting, but they're packaging in with this jungle primary stuff. And I'm sorry, but like, it's not necessary, and it was irresponsible to do that. And I've always thought that. You can go back to my 2022 election video where I talk about this. Always thought it was irresponsible and stupid to package something as necessary as the ranked choice vote with this really kind of weird sort of off-the-wall thing of the jungle primary that just, like, it doesn't actually provide any noticeable benefit. I'm sorry, like, there's no actual point in having it. And yet it was frustrating to me because the only way to actually get the thing we want is to vote for the thing that we don't need. Fine, I'm willing to do that. But that automatically makes it harder to get the thing that we need. And all of the ads were not even focusing on the ranked choice voting aspect. They were focusing on the open primary aspect, but it's like, that's not the important thing at all. And it was, oh God, I just can't, like, why are people so stupid? Do they not understand why this is such a good thing? And and they clearly don't. Like, nobody's talking about it. It clearly doesn't matter to anybody. Even the people who are in support of ranked choice voting don't seem to understand how important it is. They don't seem to understand that, like, a huge part of the reason we have this sort of political malaise and pessimism in our country is because of the voting system that we have, and how it doesn't allow you to actually have a real choice. And so Nevada and Missouri both voted to disenfranchise themselves, which I think is the most moronic shit ever. Voting to have less choice. Voting to not be able to vote. Yeah, and so that was my big loss in this election. Not really so much the presidential election, although that's also, you know, didn't go my way. But it's the fact that not only did it not go my way, but nobody's talking about it, nobody cares, nobody even understands, nobody's even heard of it. I guess to me it shows that people don't really think very hard. Like, people complain about the two-party system, but they don't actually do any research to figure out how to get rid of the two-party system. They just think that, oh, there's no way to actually get... No, there is a way to get rid of it. You just don't want to do that for some reason. And I'm not saying that the ranked choice vote will get rid of the two-party system, but it is the only way to get rid of it. So I'm not saying that this will be the thing that saves us. I'm saying if you want to be saved, this is the only thing that you can do. You understand what I'm saying? You know who also went down in this election was Alan Lichtman, because Alan Lichtman has sort of pretended to have this spotless record in predicting presidential elections. The only one that he didn't get right was Al Gore and George W. Bush, which was so contested that you can kind of give him a pass for it. But this time was the first time he's ever just been straight up wrong, which shows to me, I think, that there's some unprecedented things to consider. I was definitely thinking that Kamala Harris was the favorite in this election, but it seems that it's really difficult to account for who's actually going to be voting and how they're going to be voting these days. It isn't like it used to be, which has always made sense to me because I don't talk to pollsters. I don't answer any of those phone calls. I hate that shit, and I think a lot of people do. So it's really not surprising to me that it's getting harder and harder for the polls to have any kind of accurate, you know, numbers. Yeah, but Alan Lichtman admitted defeat in this election, and it's, again, with the Trump voters are just so, they seem so mean and vindictive and purposely stupid. Because I looked at some sort of video or article or something about Alan Lichtman recently, because I wanted to know what people were saying about it, and it was full of these Trump people who were acting like Alan Lichtman is some sort of ideologue who they have to be against, or he's some sort of like weird sort of crackpot who's like bad in some way. And it's like, no, he's just a guy who had a pretty reliable model for how to predict who would win. And in fact, he predicted Donald Trump would win in 2016. And so they were just gloating incessantly and acting like this is some sort of like big deal that his model just happened to not be accurate enough this time. Like, that's really what happened. It's not like Alan Lichtman like is somehow like ideologically lost this one in any way. But I guess it just shows the, you know, intelligence of the Trump voters. They're not very smart. They always interpret things the wrong way. They'll look at something and then just interpret all this shit that doesn't belong into it. Like, for instance, when this is something I brought up before, when Jimmy Dore interviewed Caleb Cain, they acted like Jimmy Dore owned Caleb Cain, even though he never even disagreed with him on anything. But because he was yelling and Caleb Cain happened to be in the room, they thought he was yelling at Caleb Cain. And that's just the level of delusion of these people, is they're not living in reality. They're like, everything that looks like it could be a certain thing, I'm gonna interpret as however it's going to, you know, vindicate me. And that's, you know, that's the whole reason he won, I guess. But, you know, people are trying to have takeaways from this. People are like, I've saw Amazing Atheist takeaway. I saw Kyle's takeaway. They're like, well, what can Democrats learn from this? And you know what? In 2016, maybe they did have something to learn from this. I think in 2016, that was a big wake-up call. Donald Trump winning. It showed the failure of their strategy, the failure of Hillary Clinton's sort of smugness faced with Donald Trump's actual populist message. But this time around, I think I disagree with The Amazing Atheist, and I disagree with Kyle. The problem is, I just don't think you can copy what Trump is doing and make a president who is going to be any good. I don't think that there's anything for the Democrats to learn this election cycle, because the only reason Trump won is because everyone is just so fucking stupid and brainwashed. There's no actual... There's nothing that Trump did right this time around, you know? He just leaned into, like, all of the worst things he possibly could have done, and it actually worked out in the end. It was actually, he pulled a rabbit out of the hat in the end, and it worked. Whereas I just don't think Democrats can do that. I don't think that Democrats can elect a Trump. I just don't think that's in our wheelhouse, because we're just a different type of voter base. We want different things from our candidates. And so I actually think that, you know, obviously Kamala Harris wasn't a great candidate, but she did everything right, despite not being a good candidate. Everything that she did leading up to this election, I think, was the smart move. Like, I looked at these things and I was like, yeah, this is a good idea, this is a good idea, this is a good idea. That's why I was actually starting to have a little bit of hope. Hope that things might just be turning around generally for the sort of Democratic Party going in the right direction. But now that it didn't work, it's at this point where I'm like, now I'm feeling like the Sneetches at the end of the book. I don't even know what to do now. Like, what is the pathway forward? Some people will say, oh, you really gotta give to your base, you know? You really gotta promise big things. But I don't think that the Democratic voters seem to want that, because the really populist candidates keep losing in the primaries. Bernie Sanders lost, well, I guess the super delegates kind of stole it from him in 2016. But in 2020, yeah, he lost the primary election. So I don't know, can the voters make up their minds the next time around? It all seems to be down to the voters and what they vote in. But it seems like the voters don't like populist Democrats, but they do like Donald Trump. So I just don't know, like, what we're even supposed to learn from this. It seems like there's no takeaway that actually means anything in the end. I have no idea really what direction this country is going in. I can see no real trajectory in front of me. This all feels like, if I feel like Dr. Manhattan at the end of Watchmen, you know, the tachyons are interfering with my perception of time. I'm also just curious about, you know, the left has built up Trump to be this really bad guy, and yeah, sure, the things that he does seem to be pretty bad, and the crimes that he commits are pretty bad. But they've really sold it to us this time. They've really sold it to us as this is the last presidential election. And so I just am wondering how much these people are going to admit that they were wrong if this isn't the last election, and things just kind of roll over the next cycle the way they have been this whole time. Because I said it once before, I think, when was it? It was on one of my streams. No, it wasn't. It was on my vlog after Trump was shot, and I said that I kind of wished that the bullet killed him. I said I don't think that Trump is the guy who is going to destroy democracy in America. However, I do think that he's a major catalyst for the slow erosion of America's faith in its political system, which has actually kind of been happening for the last 20 years. Really since 9/11. I think 9/11 was the first big catalyst, and ever since then it's been getting worse and worse. And Trump is just the newest big catalyst to add to that chemical reaction. But I've always maintained that not only do I not believe Trump is a fascist just from a semantical perspective as somebody who studies fascism, I don't see fascism properly in Donald Trump. That's not to say that, because I don't consider fascist to be a synonym with bad, and so when people act like I'm defending Trump by saying he's not a fascist, it's like, no, he is every bit as bad as you're saying he is. I just don't think he's a fascist. But not only that, I also think the one way he isn't as bad as people say he is that I just don't see it in him personally to be the thing that destroys the Republican process. That destroys the Constitution, that destroys, you know, the system as it has been. I don't think he's the guy. And so it's going to be really kind of frustrating, I think, if I am right and Trump doesn't do all the stuff that people are saying he's going to do, and then the left doesn't own up to it. They don't own up to the way that they've sort of lied and misled people. I think it's totally reasonable to worry about Trump's influence on America's faith in the political process, and worry that his contribution to the erosion thereof is going to be really severe, and it could lead to a slippery slope that it could eventually ruin us. But that's not the take that I keep seeing. The take I keep seeing is like, this is the last election in American history. So if that doesn't pan out now, who's going to take responsibility for that lie? That's all I'm saying. But yeah, anyway, totally doomer, dark MAGA end of this year. You know, we're going into the new dark ages. Any kind of hope that I had in things potentially improving, in people potentially realizing the error of their ways, is dashed. It's done. This is VEDN Day 6. I'll see you tomorrow for VEDN Day 7.